They say that voting comes with consequences, and if you lose that vote, the consequences could be against you. But what if you voted for somebody? Do you expect the consequences still to be against you? A man in Florida, who shall remain unnamed, had a situation where his wife, along with 2 other men that were construction workers, all got deported. His wife was from Venezuela. He's obviously a citizen of the US. He lives in Florida. He voted for Donald Trump. And so now he's asking Donald Trump to make this go away and bring back his wife. I heard about this video through a venter, and the name of the video creator is David Pakman. And what's interesting about this channel is it's one of the far left channels that are pretty popular. And so I went ahead and wrote down a handful of the people's comments, and I thought it would be fun just to kind of go over those together. But let's go over it in a positive way, because obviously it's no fun when you lose your wife to an immigration type situation. Here's the thing though, I kind of asked ChatGPT a couple questions about this, because I like to ask ChatGPT a lot of questions all the time about a lot of different subjects. But basically, ChatGPT said that if you are married to a US citizen and it's a legitimate wedding, in other words, you're not just claiming that you're married, but it's a legitimate marriage as seen by law, then there should be a pretty smooth pathway for his wife to apply for citizenship through the green card, right? And apparently if she maintains her green card status for 3 years, she can then apply for direct citizenship. Because her family, I assume, lives in Venezuela and her husband is American, even if she gets deported, now this is worst case scenario because she obviously did, but I'm assuming he could send her a couple $100 a month until things get smoothed out. And if you live in Venezuela and somebody sends you 20 or 30 bucks a month, I'm guessing you're probably living pretty nicely. So again, very sad situation. You want to be empathetic towards people. I don't look at somebody and say, oh my God, you voted for this. But I have done that on the other side of things, right? When it comes to California and stuff, I have said, you guys voted for these judges and you guys voted for these policies. Now you have to live with it. So the reason I bring this up is because obviously sometimes that goes the other way too. This is one of those situations. By the way, I actually got some courage today, venters. I went out to a parking lot in front of a grocery store today, and I talked to 9 people all together, and the first 4 people said, no, I don't want to interview with you in your YouTube show. Thank you anyway, and walked away, right? Very embarrassing. But the last 4 or 5 people I spoke with were nice enough to let me interview them. So now I'm thinking about making a pivot in the show and starting to ask real people real questions and then asking them to subscribe. Ah, ha, 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 ha. So Xavier Wolfgang says, I cannot tell a lie. He's quoting George Washington. I cannot tell the truth. He's quoting Donald Trump, even though I don't know if Donald Trump actually said that. And then I cannot tell the difference. He's quoting MAGA people. Here's the interesting thing. I think that Xavier might be under the impression that only Donald Trump and only Republicans lie. But I think we can all agree that both sides lie a lot. I mean, literally a lot. And the reality was, even Joseph Biden ended up kind of telling a couple fibs, right? Because didn't he say he wasn't going to pardon Hunter Biden? And didn't he say this? And didn't he say that, right? So again, one of those things where I think you can point out and look at somebody and say, orange man bad, or you could just say, golly, seems like everybody that we vote for, whether it's on the right or left, is a little questionable. So here's my first question to you guys. Do you guys agree with me that there's something different about losing a loved one who's been deleted off the face of the earth, right, by another person? And then your wife having to go to another country temporarily. If this destroys their marriage, then their marriage probably was never meant to be. If this is something where the American can use his citizenship to her advantage, they are legally married. If they're not legally married, then we're not really having a very fun, righteous discussion. I don't like that the guy didn't want to leave his name, so it comes across as some anonymous video, But the reality is, that numbers-wise, when you have millions of people that are here illegally, that you're going to have some situations where they're actually married to U.S. citizens. Here's where I'm naive. I was under the impression that if you marry an American, you get citizenship. But again, that's something I've been hearing since I was a young boy. I always thought that if people could get you to marry them, they get to be a citizen. But according to ChatGPT, it sounds like that does not guarantee you citizenship, but it does give you a smoother pathway to obtain citizenship. So let me ask you guys a question on the left. If this is such a horrible thing, but you guys are kind of okay with it because this guy voted for Trump, then do you guys think it's an okay thing if she ends up doing things the right way, and because they are married, she does get citizenship? It might not happen overnight. It might take 3 months. It might take 3 years. But my thinking is that should be the ultimate goal anyway, correct? To actually become a citizen? Could you imagine just living in a country for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and never becoming a citizen of that country? And here's another question I have for everybody. Could you imagine literally one day going out to Canada or France or South Africa or Russia and just never leaving? I don't think those countries would allow that. So if every other country has laws regarding their citizens and their borders, why doesn't America? Oh yeah, America does. We're just going to start following those laws a little bit more. So again, it's kind of, look at it like your house. If somebody just moved into your home, I don't think that would be cool with you. So I don't know why certain people get to speak on behalf of the country. It's our country. We deserve for people to come a legal way. I don't know. To me, that seems like no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you should want somebody here that's legally here. At Maxi News says, why is she any different? You are not special. Trump told you exactly what he was going to do. So again, guys, if you read the comments on this David Pacman video, right, you'll notice that literally every comment is the same thing. You made your bed, lie in it. You voted for Orange Man, here's your prize. You were dumb enough to do this. You basically called ICE on your wife. There was no empathy, no sympathy at all, which leads me to believe that our country is just as divided today as it was yesterday. It's going to be even more divided tomorrow. I think we as people lack empathy. We lack sympathy for groups. We lack empathy for others. And I think that's just the way it is. I think both sides talk a good game. But I think in the grand scheme of things, everybody's just for themselves. That's why I always laugh and giggle when people talk about the narcissist that they just left. Because more than likely, every time any one of us looks in the mirror, you're probably looking into the eyes of a narcissist. Most people in this country are for themselves. I think if we looked in and changed that man in the mirror, I think we'd be such a better place. But everybody's looking for external forces to change. Nobody seems to realize that change comes from within. If everybody actually did practice empathy and sympathy, the world would be a really wonderful place to live in. I just think that everyone's losing that ability. I really do. At James Kennedy says, they didn't come snatch her. You turned her over to them with your vote. You did this. Okay, so that means if the guy wasn't Democrat in any way, shape, or form, because sometimes, there's things other than just immigration that go into your decision and your thought process. So if this guy was Republican because he is pro-life and he thinks nothing along the lines of immigration, you're saying that he's forced to vote Democrat, otherwise he deserves stuff like this happening? I don't really understand that. And then on the other end, if you vote Democrat and then somebody does lose their life and nothing happens to the bad guy, you deserve that? I know in past talks I've kind of talked that way, but that's just anger and emotion that spring up from time to time. I don't really feel that anybody deserves that. And again, this wife thing, it doesn't seem on the same level as losing a life. If your marriage is really for forever, which by the way, that's what marriage is supposed to be, then they should be able to survive her going back to Venezuela until they can legally make this better. He's going to have to work. He's going to have to get a lawyer. He's going to have to try to do it the right way. But isn't that what we all want anyway? Don't we want people to do things the right way? This just forces it to happen faster. Kim W. 9626 says his racism was more important than his wife. So again, this is what the left feel. The left feel like just voting for Donald Trump, the orange man, makes you racist. That's really hard to want to communicate with those people. It's really hard to come to a middle ground when everybody thinks like that. It's really, really weird. A lot of times at work, people are able to talk about things from a certain point of view. They aren't really allowed to talk about conservative things, because when you talk about conservative things, you're naturally kind of grouped into this misogynistic, ultra-conservative, ultra-Christian side. And the reality is, you might just consider the left side a little bit too left. We kind of don't even appreciate people that are in the middle anymore, even though a majority of us probably are in the middle. But I'm telling you, people on the left, you gotta let go of this. If you're conservative or vote for the right, you're racist, because what you're doing is you're making it where it's scary for people to even want to be honest with you about who they vote for. In the future, there's probably going to be somebody that wants to make it legally illegal to even talk about who you vote for. Because it's getting to the point where you would be almost stupid to admit that you're voting one way or another for fear of retribution. And by the way, you guys got to remember, because this happened just in the last 10, 15 years, people used to be best friends with people on the other side of the aisle. Nowadays, I feel like that doesn't happen because we've already told ourselves, I'm not going to be friends with them if they vote for Orange Man. If you vote for Orange Man, you can just take my phone number and throw it away. I'm not your friend anymore. My God, if you don't see anything that's horrible about that, then you must be blind. Venters, I'm very proud of you because you guys have known for quite a while now what side of the aisle I'm on. I consider myself to be very conservative, right? I think a lot of the stuff that happens on the left is a little nutty. But the reason I'm proud of you guys is because I know for a fact that not all of you guys agree with me. But yet you guys have always said that the walk must go on anyway. That's what's cool about life. When you've had a little experience under your belt, you start to realize that there's more important things than solely politics. You know, one of the things that we want to do, regardless of our party affiliation, is we want to start a walking routine so that we can live a long time, knowing that our children and our grandchildren are not necessarily going to agree with us politically. It doesn't make me love my kids or grandkids any less or any more, and I assume you guys feel the same. So if we're not going to give up on our family members, why the hell should we give up on each other? That's where we're going to be more positive than some of these polarizing sites on both sides. They make it sound like we're not capable of being friends. I love it that we're different. Bill Elder says his wife will be far better off without him. All right, kick him in the balls while he's down, Bill. That was a kid that looked like he was about 12 or 13 on his little dirt bike. That's how it used to be back in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up. Nowadays, I feel like kids are mainly playing video games. Do you guys know that that flight that hit the Black Hawk helicopter and then went into the Potomac River there in Washington, D.C.? Well, my mother had told me the other day that apparently one of the employees that was supposed to be in that tower left early and went home. I don't know if they were feeling under the weather or what, but it created a situation where there was one person in that tower when there were supposed to be two specifically taking care of what now this person was doing all by themselves. In other words, the guy that was there ended up doing basically two jobs by himself. Another video that I saw today that kind of weirded me out, because I was thinking this even before the video came, is when they were talking back and forth between the tower and the pilot, right? The pilot saying, yes, confirm, I have visual on him. And now they're thinking that he was looking at a completely different aircraft, and basically this other aircraft that he collided with was kind of in his proverbial blind spot. But what's really interesting is, why didn't the tower people act a little bit more excitedly? You know, I mean, even if you're half asleep, if you see two dots getting closer and closer and closer, and by the way, supposedly, they have little alarms that chirp. And apparently, did you know these alarms were chirping for like 10 or 15 seconds prior to you know, them making contact and colliding with one another? I find that extremely interesting. Does that mean it was another military guy going off his rocker? Does that mean it was a tower situation where maybe the guy was half asleep or doing too much work by himself? Does that mean that they had inferior people in the tower? I don't know if it was any of those, but I think it's interesting enough where I hope we find out more than just it was a complete accident. Not that I don't want it to be a complete accident, but I'd like to think that they have a way of getting to the bottom of this one way or another. Do you guys think there's anything funny about the plane and the chopper colliding? Yeah, that kid can't be more than 11 or 12 years old. How cool must that feel? That is freedom right there. I think the younger people don't appreciate getting their own vehicle the way we did. Do you guys remember how magical it was? There's a famous movie out there called 16 Candles. And I think one of the big things in that movie was Anthony Michael Hall being able to drive. There's something really cool about getting your license. There's another movie that I remember back in the day with Corey Haim. It was called Licensed to Drive. And he and his twin sister were both going and getting their license. He ended up failing his test because the person that went with him on his driving test was just a jerk. Meanwhile, his sister, the person that went with her, was just like the nicest, calmest person. If you saw License to Drive with the, I believe both Corys are in that, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, let me know. And I might be wrong. Feldman might not have been in that, but Corey Haim was. I thought it was a great movie. And by the way, how do you guys feel? Were you guys under the same impression I was, that if you married an American citizen, you won the lottery and you got to stay? I didn't know that you could still be deported, but even if you can be deported, if being married to an American citizen puts you on a fast track to get your visa, and then after 3 years you can apply for direct citizenship, then my thinking is, what's wrong with doing it the right way? You're married, and if you're not married and that's just part of the video rumor mill, well then shame on the video rumor mill for not getting it right. Some people might say, well, Jesse, do you really have to be married to love somebody? And if a girlfriend got deported, isn't that just as bad? I mean, it's horrible, but I think we can all agree it's different than your wife being deported. But it sounds like if it's your wife, then she's got some major advantages over other people that get deported. Could you imagine if one of us Americans went on the news and started crying that, like, France kicked us out? Hey, I've been living in Paris for the last 3 years and they wouldn't let me stay. All right, it was cool the first 2 times, but holy shit, find a different route, kid. Holy crap, 4 times. There's the younger side of me that says, you know what, that looks so much fun, and I'm sure it is. But then there's the older side of me that's like, God, be careful, kid. I would hate to see you splatter yourself all over the asphalt, all over the street. Be careful. I don't know if you guys watched last night's video, but it really touched me in a way that no other video has. What if part of the reason some of us are struggling with our weight, or struggling with our finances, or struggling with our relationship or life is because we're hanging out with other negative, unlucky type people? And what if one of the best ways to change your luck is to literally stop hanging out with those type of individuals? And it really puts a fork in the road for someone like me, because number one, obviously I have a channel where we share negative stories from time to time, but also as a Christian, you know as well as I do, it's kind of our job to help people when they're going through tough times in their lives. But the whole idea that just helping them might bring you down to their level of unluckiness sounds a little crazy, but at the same time, I could see how it would make certain people, not necessarily want to help those people. What are your thoughts on it, if you have any thoughts on it? Anyway, I wish you guys a wonderful day. Have a nice walk, and I'll see you tomorrow.